So there was 5 games that happened in this midweek action, but I actually put 6 games on the board because I am also going to be reviewing the Camponenes Cup that happened yesterday. And you know, I didn't watch the Camponenes Cup because I was actually busy watching the Minnesota versus Colorado game and watch a little bit of the Orlando City versus SKC game. And after when I watched the review show of the Camponenes Cup and find out that Atlanta United become the first ever MLS team to win Camponenes Cup, I definitely regret not watching the game because this was a very entertaining game for both of these teams. And you kind of had a feeling that this could potentially be a very entertaining game and a very high scoring game, considering the fact that both of these teams are kind of very similar to each other. I mean, here you have Atlanta United, the defending champion in MLS, and a team that tends to bring a lot of high-profile young South American player and spend a lot of money to try to get that, and that they're facing a Copa America team that I'm pretty sure everybody knows that not only they're one of the most hated team in Liga MX, but the fact that they also spend a lot of money and even more than Atlanta United in terms of trying to get these young South American talent to Liga MX, and that this was definitely a good heavyweight kind of showdown to see who exactly is the king of North America, and that in the end Atlanta United of course was able to prevail in this game, and that they actually got off to a great start in the 5th minute when Emerson Hyman scores his first ever goal for Atlanta United from Dion Pereira, and that both of these guys are part of the signings that Atlanta made during the transfer window in the summer and also in the last winter, which I'm pretty sure Atlanta's got to be very happy when they see both of those guys that they just signed recently made a big impact into this game. But Club America did respond 8 minutes later, and it was Ibarra that scored the equalizer for Club America from Martinez to give the Club America an equalizer at that point. Now, Atlanta did had a couple of chances of retaking the lead, and it looked like they had a golden opportunity to retake the lead when they actually won a penalty right on the stroke of halftime, and that here you have Joseph Martinez, who has coming into this game scoring 10 straight MLS game and owning that record for the most games with at least a goal coming into this match, and that he has a chance to basically step up in the penalty spot and once again give Atlanta the lead here. But the thing is, he missed the penalty. And you know how a couple of weeks ago he tried to bring back his trademark kind of unorthodox PK run up where he decided to just run up at the ball, and then at the last second he decided to do a little bit of a skippy hop before he basically strike that one into the back of the net. And the whole point of that skippy hop is that he is hoping that the goalkeeper have already committed himself, and that when the goalkeeper committed himself during that situation, he can of course read where the goalkeeper is going, and that he can just basically slots it where the goalkeeper have already commits himself in terms of trying to save the penalty. And I feel like right now a lot of goalkeeper has really kind of caught up to that, and certainly when you saw what happened against DC United where, you know, Bill Hamid, he basically stood on his ground and did not get fooled by the skippity hop. It seemed like it's the same case again in this situation where the Copa America goalkeeper was not fooled whatsoever in terms of that skippy hop. Although this skippy hop by Martinez was very dramatic. Like, I swear, he literally almost, like, isn't even a hop that he did. It looked like he basically decided to just, as he about to hit the ball from the penalty spot, he decided to just kind of jump up in the air before kind of putting that one into the back of the net. And, you know, not only, like I said, not only the Copa America goalkeeper were not fooled whatsoever, but that, I just feel like that is just, that, something tells me that is going to really put off Joseph Martinez in that situation. And indeed, it was, as of course he missed the penalty. And that, you know, the other thing that, you know, besides the fact that goalkeeper started to catch up to to the fact that they now know that all you have to do is just don't commit yourself when Joseph Martinez is making that skippy hop, and that as long as you don't commit yourself, Joseph Martinez will just have to kind of guess where exactly he's gonna put the ball in, and more time or not, you could potentially save that shot because Joseph Martinez is hoping that the goalkeeper have already commit himself, and when he doesn't commit himself, then he doesn't know where to put the ball. But I think the other reason why this penalty kind of run up does not work whatsoever is that it basically just slow down your momentum in terms of striking the ball. You have seen many times when Joseph Martinez decided to do this unorthodox penalty, and you can see how many times whenever he does that, he doesn't really strike the penalty very hardly. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that once you decide to do a little skippy hop, you basically lost all that momentum from the run up, and that you just have to hope that you can, of course, slide that one to the side where the goalkeeper is not diving toward, and that, if that is the case, then there are going to be times where if the goalkeeper does guess the right way, then that's just going to be easily saved by the goalkeeper. So yeah, hopefully this might be the last time we see this unorthodox kind of PK run up. I mean, I know there are still people said that he should keep doing it because it's so unusual, but at the end of the day, I feel like when you have a penalty, you should just do your normal run up, and where you can just just run up the ball and kick the ball into the back and in. And that I feel like nowadays there are just so many players that tends to just be too fancy and trying to be too cute in terms of these penalty kick run up, that eventually, I think that players need to know that when you take a penalty, you should just run up straight up and just hope that the goalkeeper dives the wrong way, or that you place it perfectly to basically hit into the back of the net. Because at the end of the day, when you take a penalty, it's not really a contest of seeing who has the best run up. It's all about putting the ball into the back of the net. So yeah, as I said, with that missed penalty, the game stays at 1 apiece. And then in the second half, Club America took the lead for the first time tonight, and it was Roger Martinez that scores from Cordova to give Club America a 2-1 lead. And when that goal scored, not only the fact that there was a feeling of here we go again, a Liga MX team is able to take advantage of the fact that MLS team wasn't able to convert their chances, and now it looked like they are just going to run away with this game. And that we've seen it so many times, not only in CCL but in the past tournament when MLS team faced against Liga MX in a game where MLS team missed their chances, Liga MX team basically take advantage of it, and the rest is history. But that's not how this game turned out, and instead 2 minutes later, Elena got the equalizer, and it's actually from an unlikely source, as Larenovic scores an absolute banger of a goal to tie the game up. And albeit it was kind of deflected, and I think that deflection did kind of help the fact that the ball, of course, bounced off the post and into the back of net, but still take nothing away from that goal that Larenovic hit. And that, I feel like he basically just thought that, I might as well just kind of have a strike at this, and maybe I get a lucky deflection or hit this one perfectly, and then it goes into the back of net. And that is exactly what happened in this game, as Elena, of course, ties the game up after they went down just 2 minutes ago. And it just felt like after that equalizer, it looked like Elena has the momentum and potentially going to retake the lead, which they eventually did when Pity Martinez was brought down in the box. And originally, when Pity Martinez was brought down in the box, he immediately goes to the penalty spot and almost was just kind of praying to Joseph Martinez that, how about I take the penalty, and that can I take this penalty since, of course, you missed the last one. But Joseph Martinez obviously says no, because he wants to redeem himself after he missed the last penalty. And indeed, that is exactly what happened, as he redeemed himself after that missed penalty early on. And this time, he decided not to do his unorthodox run-up and just do a normal run-up to the ball, which he puts it into the left side of the post, and that it was a perfect penalty from him that gave Atlanta United a 3-2 lead. And Atlanta chances of winning the game and become the first team ever to win the Camponenes Cup as an MLS team increases when in the 73rd minute, Valdez, of course, got sent off after he stopped a promising attack that Atlanta was developing, and that of course was his second yellow. And yeah, in the end, Atlanta of course win this one 3-2. And in terms of the shots in this game, Atlanta had 17 shots compared to 15 that Club America had, 10 shots on goal compared to 6 that Club America had. Both teams had 5 shots off target, 2 shots that was blocked compared to 4 that Club America had, and Atlanta had 58% possession compared to 42% possession that Club America had. And like I said, Atlanta United becomes the first ever MLS team to win Camponenes Cup, and they also become the first ever team since DC United in 1998 to beat a Liga MX team in a cup final. And I know a lot of people won't say that this is really kind of a big achievement considering the fact that it's a Camponenes Cup and the fact that the Camponenes Cup is still a cup that a lot of fans don't really kind of pay attention or don't really take it very seriously. But I really think this was a great victory for MLS, and the fact that, when you look at this game, both of these teams did not just decided to play their reserve. Like Club America, they didn't even put their reserve. They actually decided to put their strongest team, and that it just felt like both of these teams really want to win this trophy. And if this is what the Camponenes Cup is going to be all about, I know that I think last year I talked about how the Camponenes Cup was kind of a useless kind of tournament, and that it is just another kind of example of the fact that they're trying so hard to have this competition between MLS team versus Liga MX team to see who exactly is the biggest league in North America. But if this is, of course, what we're going to see, where, if both of these teams are going to put their strongest 11 and that they really want to win this trophy, then I have a feeling Camponenes Cup could be something very special, and that I feel like maybe some people would pay attention to it because, like I said, I regret not watching this one, consider I thought this was just going to be a very kind of boring game where both team wasn't really going to put their starters, and that, in the end, probably Club America was going to win it again. But that was not the case whatsoever in this game, and that I hope that, in future Camponenes Cup, if this is kind of the game that we're going to see, then this Camponenes Cup could be something that is not only going to be staying, but it could be one of the most entertaining kind of match of the season. But now moving on back to the league games that I am going to review, and we start off with the league action with Orlando City versus Sporting KC, where Orlando City of course won 1-0 against SKC. And during this midweek game, there wasn't really a lot of goals that was scoring, but there was definitely a lot of shutouts that happened during the midweek game, and that 4 out of the 5 games during the middle of the week was shutout, and that the only game that wasn't a shutout was actually a 5-goal thriller between the Portland Timbers versus the Chicago Fire, which I of course will get to. But in this game, well, let's just say that if you're a neutral watching this game, yeah, I do apologize, and that I felt like you definitely have the right to say that you wish you have that 90 minutes back, because overall it was definitely not a very entertaining game, and that it looked like both team in terms of the attack really stutter in this game. But still, take nothing away from the defending in this game. Like, both defense was very good in this match, and that the only goal in this game was Akindele scoring for Eskills and Rosell to give Orlando City a 1-0 lead. And I think probably the most entertaining part of this game came in the latter part of the match, where SKC had a golden opportunity to get the equalizer when Benny Feilhaber was just all alone in the 18-yard box, and that all he had to do is basically slot that one past Brian Rowe, but somehow in some way he puts it wide in that situation. And then a couple of minutes later on the other end, Orlando City was off to the races and had a very promising counterattack, and Nani basically plays a perfect ball to Sasha Kleshin, who was one-on-one with Tim Melia, but somehow, in some way, the ball, of course, was clear off the line by one of the SKC player, and that, I think that was really the only excitement part of this game, as it was relatively kind of a dull game between both of these teams. But Orlando City won't care because they got the victory. And in terms of shots in this game, Orlando City had 8 shots compared to 14 that SKC had, 2 shots on goal compared to 3 that SKC had, 3 shots off target compared to 9 that SKC has, 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that SKC had, and possession wise, 44% possession compared to 56% possession from SKC. And that with this win, Orlando City does tie with TFC and Montreal for that final spot in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. And as for SKC, yeah, this is definitely not a good performance, and that this is a huge loss that they suffered, because remember how I said 2 weeks ago that they are now in an important stretch, and that this is really the stretch where it's a make or break kind of season for them. Well, they have presented in this stretch by starting the stretch with losing 2 in a row, and that something tells me that SKC, their chances of making the playoffs this season could be done, and that they really now look more and more like that Toronto FC team from last season, where just like SKC, they made a deep run to CCL, didn't win it, had a lot of injuries during the season, and thought that they were gonna get that second half resurgence. It never did, and there you go. I mean, it's a very disappointing season for SKC, and I really think their chances of potentially not making the playoffs could be cemented next week against the Quakes, where if they do not beat the San Jose Earthquakes at home, I really think they are done in terms of their playoff chances. They're just way too far back in terms of the playoff races with just so little games left of the season. But moving on into the next match is another 1-0 game. And it's Minnesota that, of course, win 1-0 against the Rapids. And while Minnesota, of course, got the 3 points that they needed in this game, I definitely do have some concerns with the Loons in this game. And the concern that I have with this team is that, once again, they cannot put the ball into the back of the net, despite the fact that they create a ton of chances in this game. And that this is something we saw earlier this season, where they definitely have a lot of chance and put up like 18, 19, or even 20 plus shots in a game, but yet they aren't being very clinical, and that they weren't able to find that killer touch to potentially get the win in this game. Now, in this one, they did get the win, despite the boatload of chances that they missed. And the only goal in this game came in the 39th minute, when Quintero was able to score from Molino to give Minnesota a 1-0 lead. But in the second half, Loons continued to have chances to kill this game off, but they couldn't quite get that second goal. And Colorado kind of started to creep back into this game. I mean, the Rapids throughout this game, they were pretty much dominate throughout this game, and that they didn't really have a lot of chances. But in the second half, they kind of started to wake up a little bit and kind of started to get a couple of half chances that might give them a chance to get the equalizer at that point. But fortunately for Minnesota, they weren't able to take advantage of those half chances and that good spell that they kind of had around the hour mark, and that Minnesota did win 1-0 in this game. And in terms of shots in this game, 27 shots compared to 11 that the Rapids had, 9 shots on goal compared to 3 that the Rapids had, 12 shots off target compared to 5 that the Rapids had, 6 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that the Rapids had, and Minnesota had 58% possession compared to 42% possession. And that, once again, the Loons, they missed a lot of chance in this game, and the stats definitely show that, with them having 20 plus shots in this game. And, when you're facing a team that is not doing very good this season, you can definitely get away with the fact that you are missing a lot of chances, and that you can, of course, squeak out a 1-0 win. But if you're facing a better team in the Western Conference or a better team in the Eastern Conference at home, that is something you definitely do not want to do, where you're just going to miss a bunch of chances and not able to put it away. And that, as long as if you continue to put this at a 1-0 game, and as long as you decide to not get that killer second goal in the second half, then all it takes is one bounce from the opponent or just one good fortune from the opponent, and just like that, the game could have been tied up. So yeah, I hope Minnesota would realize that in the future, and that they need to start finding a way to make sure they put away most of their chances when they of course got them. But moving on into the next match is RSL. Boy, RSL all of a sudden is on fire right now. So they, of course, take down Seattle in this game as they won 3-0 against the Sounders, and it was a very dominant performance for RSL at home. In the first half, 25 minutes into this game, Sam Johnson, who just came back from a lengthy injury, scores from Herrera to give RSL a 1-0 lead. Then in the second half, RSL got the second goal from Rusnak, who, of course, scored from Krylak and Bear to give RSL a 2-0 lead at that point. Then Corey Bear himself would score from Krylak to give RSL a 3-0 lead at that point, and that would be the final score of this game, as Seattle had 0 shots on goal in this game, and that the shots count in this game, RSL had 16 shots compared to 6 that Seattle has, 4 shots on goal compared to none that the Sounders had, 5 shots off target compared to 1 that the Sounders had, 7 shots that was blocked compared to 5 that the Sounders had, and possession-wise, 53% possession compared to 47% possession. And although, for the Seattle Sounders, I understand that in this game they definitely did not put their strongest starting 11, and that they are definitely dealing with a lot of injury trouble, especially on the defensive end. In some way, if I'm a Sounders fan, I definitely are started to be a little bit worried with this team, even with the injury trouble that this team had, because with them being in this slump of them not winning a game in 4 matches, they all of a sudden have looked like a team that is dropping down the Western Conference, and that, as long as they can continue this bad run that they are on right now, they could possibly drop out of the red line. And that, a couple of weeks ago, everybody thought that Seattle was potentially a lock to make the playoffs, but since they're now in this bad run that they are on right now, they are dropping fast in terms of the Western Conference table. And that, once again, this just shows you how tight the Western Conference is right now, and that if you have one bad run during a season, and that, if one team in the Western Conference has a bad run like what the Sounders is having right now, then yeah, expect to drop down the table and potentially even fall out of the table if they continue to have that bad run. But, hopefully when they get some of their star player back from injury, this team can start to look like the team it was in the beginning of the season, and when they did finally get their star back a couple of months ago. But it also kind of highlight the fact that Seattle does not have any depth whatsoever. Like, some of their depth player that they thought that could really just come off the bench to perform has not performed whatsoever in this game. And that, come playoff time, if that is the case, that really makes me that really does make me concerned about the Sounders team heading into the playoffs, because heading into the playoffs, you definitely need to have some depth in terms of trying to make an MLS Cup run, because in the playoffs, you definitely are going to be playing against a team that is going to be very physical against you, and that there usually injuries does happen in the playoffs. And that I really think for this Sounders team, as long as they don't have that star-studded lineup where they have guys like Rui Diaz, Gustav Svensson, Nicholas Ladero, Christian Rodon, Kim Ki-hee, Brad Smith, and all those kind of star-studded players that usually are in the starting 11 for this team could really find themselves in deep trouble for the remaining of the season, and that it could really be an early exit for the Seattle Sounders in the playoffs, which is kind of crazy to say because a couple of months ago we said that this might be one of the few teams that actually can go toe-to-toe with LAFC and can topple LAFC heading into the playoffs. But moving on into the next match is the Galaxy. So the Galaxy, they of course finally got a win against FC Dallas in this game as they won 2-0 in this match. And this performance by the Galaxy was a very Galaxy-like kind of performance where it wasn't pretty, and they definitely grinded out in this game. And at the end of the day, they of course rely on their golden goose, Zlatan, to able to carry them to victory by scoring a couple of goals. Now, that being said, I think this game wasn't just all about Zlatan being the only guy that carried this Galaxy team to victory. Christian Pavone, who of course was signed a couple of days ago and has been one of the headlines in MLS for the last couple of weeks, had an amazing game in this one. And I'll explain why exactly he had an amazing game in this one. But in the first half, the Galaxy had a bunch of chances, but unfortunately they weren't able to capitalize. And then in the second half, eventually they did capitalize and got that goal when Zlatan scores from Skelvik and Pavone. And there you go, Pavone on the score sheet, or for the, well, not on the score sheet, but on the assist chart for the first time this season. And then Zlatan, of course, were able to put this game away with a penalty. And this penalty was all created because Pavone basically drew this penalty. And I know there's going to be a couple of people that's going to be debating on the fact that it looked like Pavone kind of just tripped himself as he kind of took a little light contact off of Reggie Kennan. But in my opinion, he was very clever in terms of trying to draw that foul in the box and earning that penalty. And that, you know, throughout this game, he really looked like a player that the Galaxy really needed in terms of the attack, and where, you know, they really need a guy that can not only score goals for them, but also be kind of a creative player and feed those balls to Zlatan to basically puts it into the back of the net. And in this game, he really kind of showed his quality and show why a couple of years ago some of the big European Giants team was trying to get him for a hefty amount of prices. But going back to this game, Zlatan, of course, scores the penalty to give the Galaxy a 2-0 lead at that point. And yeah, that, of course, was the final score of this game, as the Galaxy had 11 shots on goal, or 11 shots in this game compared to 15 that Dallas had. 5 shots on goal compared to 1 that Dallas had. 4 shots off target compared to 9 that Dallas had. 2 shots that was blocked compared to 5 that Dallas had. And possession-wise, 45% possession compared to 55% possession that Dallas had in this game. And that, you know, for the Galaxy, they really needed this victory, considering the fact that they are one of those teams that is trying to kind of get themselves in the top 3 spot of the Western Conference that is very tight right now. And I believe they actually have that top 3 spot right now, with them being 3rd in the standings. But, you know, they are, even though they're 3rd in the standing right now, they are not that far in terms of dropping below the red line. And speaking of dropping below the red line, that's where Dallas find themselves right now, as they have dropped themselves below the red line, and that Portland, of course, overtake them, with the Timbers, of course, getting a win tonight. And, you know, for Dallas, I definitely have a lot of concern with this team, and that this started to feel very similar to what happened in the last 2 seasons, where it's right around this part of the season where Dallas started to collapse, and that they started to kind of run out of gas and start dropping down the table. And if that is the case, then Dallas is probably not going to make the playoffs. And the other thing that I also am very concerned with Dallas is that the goals well that they have right now is started to run dry a little bit. And I know in the last game they of course scored 5 goals, and you probably think, what the heck am I talking about? Well, that game was kind of an outlier, and that when you see the last couple of games, and even throughout this season for Dallas, they have not been a team that have scored a lot of goals, and that they don't really have a guy on that team that can of course be that goal scorer that they of course always look for throughout the games. And in many ways, I really think this Dallas team kind of reminds me of last season, where they are a team that always will have a guy that find a way to score goals for them, but eventually when that kind of method start to kind of broke down, and that they aren't able to find a guy that can come up big and score a goal for their team, then this is what is happening with Dallas, where they are struggling in terms of scoring goals. But moving on into the last match of this week is the Timbers. So, as I mentioned, with Dallas dropping below the red line, the reason why they dropped below the red line is because the Timbers did get all 3 points in this game and got a win against the Chicago Fire. Albeit, it was definitely not a very vintage kind of performance by the Portland Timbers at home, and that they really had to earn this victory against the Chicago Fire in this game, as they won 3-2 in this match. And, early on in the first half, it looked like Portland was going to run away with this game. Maria, of course, scored early on to give Portland a 1-0 lead. Then Brian Fernandez scores from Paredes and Maria, and it's 2-0 Portland after just 21 minutes. And then right after the half-hour mark, Alexander Katai got sent off after when they go to VAR and find out that Katai actually elbowed Cascante in a off-the-ball situation, and that, they decided to of course, give Katai a red card in that situation. I mean, this is why we have VAR nowadays, where when you see these kind of situations where it's kind of off the ball, where before you usually don't see it because, since referee are usually so focused on the situation that is on the ball, sometimes you have some kind of situation where it's off the ball and that players are kind of trying to be very sneakily kind of do an elbow or trying to kind of shove someone's down and hope that the referee doesn't notice. But because now we have VAR, and now that the referee can know that there is an off the field situation that the video assistant want them to see, that is exactly what we're seeing right now. And that Katai, if we didn't have VAR before, I think he might have got away with elbowing Cascante, but because we have VAR in this situation, he didn't get away with this one. And yeah, Chicago was down to 10 men at that point, and I thought Portland was going to run away with this game, considering the fact that they're 2-0 up and that they have a man advantage and playing at home. But that is exactly not what happened in this game, and instead, it looked like the Timbers thought that, with them going down to 10 men and that we have a 2-0 lead, we can just basically cruise our way to victory, and we don't really need to worry about the Chicago Fire try to go on the attack and potentially score one back. Well, in the second half, that is exactly what happened in this game, where the Fire actually got one back and really caught Portland defense sleeping there, as it was the Nemanja Nikolic that scores the goal to give Chicago some life in this game. And it's great to see that Nikolic is start scoring goal, and that this is definitely great news for the Chicago Fire, considering the fact that now Nikolic has scored, I think, in 3 straight games, and that he has really started to show that kind of player that he was a couple of years ago, where he, of course, is the main goal scorer for this team and usually banging more than 10 goals every single season. So he, of course, scores the goal to give Chicago some life, and the game was at 2-1. And I think in some way that was a huge wake-up call for the Portland Timbers, because after that goal, the Timbers really started to push forward to try to get that third goal and make sure that Chicago does not have any chances of potentially getting that second goal to tie the game up. And they eventually did find that third goal and pretty much shut the door when Brian Fernandez scored his second goal from Konechny and Valeri. Chicago did score a second goal to try to make it a little bit interesting late on when Sapon scores from Frankowski in stoppage time, but that is as close as Chicago gets, and that unfortunately they kind of just ran out of time in terms of trying to get a equalizer in this game. And yeah, the Timbers of course won 3-2 in this game. And in terms of the shots in this game, Portland had 15 shots compared to 5 that Chicago had, 7 shots on goal compared to 2 that the Fire had, 6 shots off target compared to 2 that Chicago has, 2 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that Chicago has, and Portland had 62% possession compared to 38% possession. And then at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure Portland will be happy with the fact that they got all 3 points. But I know the fact that they will definitely not be happy, and especially Giovanni Savarese will not be happy with the way how they won this game, where they just look too comfortable in this game, and they really just kind of being a little bit too lapsadaisy in this game, and that they thought that they could get an easy victory with them just kind of cruise their way. But Chicago, of course, shows some fight. And I guess, as much as I know this is a disappointing loss for Chicago and that this will, of course, hurt their slim playoff chances, at least they showed some fight in this game after they kind of went down, and that they could have easily rolled over in this game, and that this would have been a very ugly game. But credit to them to, of course, fight back. And now, hopefully, they can, of course, show this kind of spirit, minus the fact that they look poor in the first 30 minutes, then yeah, maybe they could still be in a shot of potentially making the playoffs, albeit it's a very slim shot now that they can, of course, potentially make the playoffs this season. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of this midweek game. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these games? And I, of course, will do the preview tomorrow because there's no Friday games that's going to be happening tomorrow. So I might as well just do the preview tomorrow. And that, this weekend's game is I think this weekend's game is Heineken Rivalry Week, or oh no, this weekend it's not Heineken Rivalry Week. Next weekend is Heineken Rivalry Week. But this weekend there's still a lot of big games, and that we are kind of coming down to the stretch in the MLS season and kind of coming down to the time where every game really matters for each team, and that for those teams that is in playoff position or looking outside in right now, this is definitely kind of just crunch time for most of these teams, and that the standings for both of the conferences is gonna definitely change throughout this week, and I am definitely very excited to see what we're going to witness in these next couple of weeks as the season is about to close. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I will see you guys next time.